Good evening. Hello, and welcome back. Um, I'm coming to you this evening so that we can continue giving them some information. Let me just first say that this video is for informational purposes and educational purposes as well. Um, and it is for all of those individuals that are interested in this content. um, I said in a video last night that I had sent out uh, charges to our General Assembly Secretary. Um, they had been received as of yesterday morning. They were signed for. Um, that said, I want to allow you all to know what these charges and violations are, so that you understand what's going on. So that's what this video is going to be about, as well as a short appeal to our General Assembly Secretary, currently Apostle J. Jones. But the violation notice is to him, and let's go ahead and begin. To the 2024 through 25 General Assembly Secretary, Apostle J. Jones, from concerned, lifelong, and faithful members of the United House of Prayer for All People. Dear Apostle J. Jones, as members of the United House of Prayer for All People, we respectfully submit this violation notice to address serious and urgent concerns regarding the actions of Bishop A.D. Cunningham, who currently holds the office of Bishop/Chief Executive Officer, Trustee, and Spiritual Advisor of the organization. We believe that Bishop Cunningham's actions have directly violated the governing constitution of the organization, as well as the spiritual and ethical tenets outlined in the New Testament of the Holy Scripture. We urge you to consider these violations carefully, as they impact the spiritual integrity and the lawful governance of our faith community. Below is a list of charges substantiated with credible evidence, which we believe warrant formal investigation and corrective action. Violations of A.D. Cunningham, current Bishop of the United House of Prayer for All People. According to the 2009 Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People, Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith. Article 2, Purpose of the United House of Prayer for All People Constitution. Article 5, the General Assembly, Section 2, as it pertains to elders. Article 5, the General Assembly, Section 8, as it pertains to the Credentials Committee. Article 5, the General Assembly, Section 9A, as it pertains to amending the Constitution and bylaws. Article 7, Regulations for Bishops to be hereafter selected. Section 1, pertaining to the Spiritual Advisor. Article 7, Regulations for Bishops to be hereafter selected. Section 2, pertaining to full knowledge of the doctrine. Article 7, Regulations for Bishops to be hereafter selected. Section 8, pertaining to removal from office. Article 7, Regulations for Bishops to be hereafter selected. Section 9, pertaining to trial by the General Assembly. Article 8, Ministers, Section 1, as it pertains to moral conduct. Article 14, Amendments, and Article 15, Church and or Organization Asset, Section 4, as it pertains to receiving of earnings. We the people / members of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith find reasons of cause to bring charges against the current elected bishop, elected on October 13th, 2023, of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, hereafter known as UHOP-FAP. Bishop A.D. Cunningham on violations of Article 2, Article 5, Section 2, Article 5, Section 8, Article 5, Section 9A, Article 7, Section 1, Article 7, Section 2, Article 7, Section 8, Article 7, Section 9, Article 8, Section 1, Article 14, and to be upheld by Article 7, Sections 8, 8A, 9, 10, and 11 in part of the bylaws set. To the directives set forth by the Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church of the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, also known simply as the United House of Prayer for All People, also known in a simpler form as the United House of Prayer. This memo serves as the platform for the voices of the collective body, individuals, and members that make up the body of the Messiah, also known as Christ, within the membership of the United House of Prayer for All People. This body, members of the United House of Prayer for All People, consists of lifelong dedicated members of this organization who have contributed incalculable and countless amounts of support, efforts, time, energies, physically and mentally, emotionally, spiritually, with their financial resources and investments towards the sustainable stability and growth of this organization. Their contributions were made in good faith that the leadership of the United House of Prayer for All People would solidify and uphold the organization as a place of spiritual worship, according to the founder's original intent and pursuant to the principles and teachings and standards of the Holy Scriptures, also known as the Bible, while simultaneously fulfilling the purpose of erecting and maintaining houses of prayer where all people may gather for prayer and to worship the Creator of all things, our Heavenly Father, in spirit and in truth. The submission of this memo is intended to provide and invite complete transparency and consideration by the members of the United House of Prayer for All People to bring about and bring forth all actions necessary as afforded by the Constitution for the solution to the crisis within this organization, allegedly created by the current leader, Bishop A.D. Cunningham. This is a memo. The purpose of the memo is to simply state what's coming. So the memo shares with the General Assembly Secretary and anyone else, for that matter, the intent of allowing them to understand that charges are being filed against the Bishop of the House of Prayer, the current bishop, and what those articles are that are in violation. Does not go into a lot of detail as it is simply a memo. While rushing, I'm just going over the rough drafts. There's a short, small tweaking for some of this where the abbreviated United House of Prayer for All People needed to be added by organization. I don't have in front of me the final copies. I do have them. I haven't printed them out. I'm not pulling them up on email. Just reading out the drafts so that everybody would understand what's going on. The final copies may be a bit tedious for everyone to actually understand. So once again, this was just a memo. There's another form, and that one is the legal notice of violations. It's just a notice that violations have been committed. Let me come back to that one. No, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and read that. So this is a legal notice of violations. This is to Bishop A.D. Cunningham, current bishop of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, from the members of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith. March 3rd, 2025, regarding violations of the 2009 Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People, Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith. 2009, because there are unlawful amendments added to the 2022 as well as 2023 version of the Constitution. There's evidence to support that. There's also evidence to support unlawful amendments to the 2009 Constitution. However, you're going to hear that there's language to specify that we're prepared to utilize the 2009 version for the time being, as it is the earliest version that we have in our possession. There's a clause stipulating the right, reserving the right to utilize an earlier version if one comes into our possession. So this is why you're hearing about violations of the 2009 Constitution. It is the earliest version. We will not be utilizing the 2022 or the 2023 version of the Constitution. There was a General Assembly in 2024 of which amendments were added to the Constitution yet once again. That also is an unlawful amendment. Therefore, we will not be utilizing the 2024 version, even though we don't have a printed copy. We will be utilizing the 2009, and we will be challenging these constitutions to show that they are illegal and therefore null and void. So, that said, we, the undersigned members of the United House of Prayer for All People and contributors of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, hereafter referred to as UHOP, submit this formal legal notice to address serious violations attributed to the actions and conduct of the current Bishop A.D. Cunningham. The following violations are in direct contravention of the 2009 Constitution of the United House of Prayer. Specifically, Article 2, purpose, it lists the same articles and sections that I just read from the memo. The violations of the articles of the Constitution listed above arise from a series of actions and decisions taken by Bishop A.D. Cunningham, which contradicts the core principles, regulations, and standards as set forth in the 2009 Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People. Specifically, Bishop Cunningham's actions have undermined the spiritual integrity and administrative framework of the United House of Prayer as outlined in the reference articles and sections. The following are key areas of concern. Number one, failure to adhere to spiritual and doctrinal standards. As stipulated in Article 2, Section 1 and Section 2, Bishop A.D. Cunningham is required to maintain a full knowledge of the doctrine and uphold spiritual leadership based on the core values of the organization. Allegations have surfaced that he has failed to adhere to these principles, leading to a crisis of faith and trust within the membership. This is just a surface statement pertaining to the charges. As we read through this is not a list of the actual charges. So just stand by. Number two, improper conduct and moral failures. In accordance with Article 8, Section 1, the moral conduct of ministers, particularly those in leadership positions, must be above reproach. Bishop A.D. Cunningham has been accused of engaging in actions that violate the moral conduct expected of a leader within the United House of Prayer for All People, thus compromising the spiritual health of the church. Again, don't make any wind or noise about whether or not you understand this or not. As we continue reading, you'll understand going forward. Number 3, breach of the process for amendments and leadership selection. Breach of the process for amendments and leadership selection. As outlined in Article 5, Sections 8 and 9A, the process for credentialing and selecting bishops and other leaders must be conducted with full transparency and in accordance with the established constitutional procedures. It has been alleged that Bishop A.D. Cunningham's selection as bishop on October 13, 2023, did not follow proper protocol, nor was it subjected to the appropriate review and accountability as required by the Constitution. Number 4, failure to honor the authority of the General Assembly. Article 7, Section 8, Section 9, and Section 10 outline the authority of the General Assembly to review, trial, and remove leaders if necessary. Bishop A.D. Cunningham has failed to respect and adhere to these provisions, denying the General Assembly its rightful role in governing leadership decisions. Number 5, mismanagement of church assets. As detailed in Article 15, Section 4, the receiving and handling of earnings by leadership must be in full compliance with constitutional guidelines. There are significant concerns regarding Bishop A.D. Cunningham's handling of church assets with allegations of financial mismanagement and lack of transparency. The undersigned members of United House of Prayer for All People having served the organization with dedication and commitment, now demand that a thorough and transparent review of these violations be conducted. As outlined in Article 7, Section 9, and other related sections of the Constitution, the General Assembly must take immediate action to investigate these allegations and, if necessary, initiate proceedings for the removal of Bishop A.D. Cunningham from his position. We, the collective members of the United House of Prayer for All People, request the following. 1, a full investigation into the allegations outlined above to be conducted by the Special Prosecuting Attorney for the People, along with handpicked members of the organization by the SPA, Special Prosecuting Attorney, prior to the gathering of the upcoming General Assembly. 2, immediate action taken to the best of our ability, using past constitutions to correct any violations of the current Constitution and bylaws. 3, a transparent and accountable process for addressing these violations in alignment with the principles of justice, equity, and righteousness as set forth in the founding documents of the United House of Prayer for All People. The members of this organization have invested years of service, resources, and trust into the United House of Prayer for All People, and it is incumbent upon us all to ensure that its leadership upholds the values and practices that have sustained this place of worship. We are calling for action to restore integrity, accountability, and faithfulness within our beloved organization. Sincerely, and it has the members signed. Now, the law stipulates that either a minister and one member, can sign in order to file charges against the bishop to be brought forward, to be held accountable for misconduct or the violation of our laws. Outside of a minister and a member, 3 members. That's all that's necessary. We have a litany. We have several. There's not thousands, but we do have many members thus far that are in support of what it is that we're doing. Those names will not be disclosed unless they need to be disclosed to an outside agency as a result of the lack of confidentiality that we have seen, experienced within our organization due to the corruption that's at the top of the organization. So those names will not be disclosed, with the exception of the 3 names that's on the forms going along with these charges. There's a violations notice to the 2024-2025 General Assembly Secretary, Apostle J. Jones, from concerned, lifelong, and faithful members of the United House of Prayer for All People, March 3rd, 2025. As members of the United House of Prayer for All People organization, we urge you to look into and consider, this is the official notification to the General Assembly Secretary. We urge you to look into and consider the supreme actions of the current Bishop of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, due to direct violations of the office in which he holds as Bishop, Chief Executive Officer, Trustee, and Spiritual Advisor of the United House of Prayer for All People. Bishop A.D. Cunningham is accused of willful misconduct to undermine the results of official elections, to reflect his personal agenda, and protect and solidify his position as bishop, along with a host of other acts explicitly committed by him that defies the United House of Prayer for All People, the Constitution of the organization, and laws of the New Testament of the Holy Scriptures. Substantiated with credible evidence, below is a list of violations implicating the current Bishop, A.D. Cunningham, in accordance with the bylaws of the Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, hereafter known as UHOP, set forth on the date as founded in July 1st, 1929, by the founder, Bishop C.M. Grace. Violation of Article 2, purpose of the Constitution. The purpose of the organization is to establish, maintain, and perpetuate the doctrine of Christianity and the apostolic faith throughout the world among all people, to erect and maintain houses of prayers and worship where all people may gather for prayer and to worship the Almighty God in spirit and in truth, irrespective of denomination or creed, and to maintain the apostolic faith of the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Charge number 1, Bishop A.D. Cunningham has demonstrated it is alleged that Bishop A.D. Cunningham has demonstrated a clear failure to acknowledge, embrace, reinforce, and uphold the purpose of the organization as outlined in Article 2 of the Constitution. Specifically, he is being accused of misusing organizational funds for personal agendas rather than addressing the ongoing maintenance needs of the various church properties throughout the organization. Additionally, he has magnified and esteemed himself as he has falsely taught in his travels that it is acceptable to worship a man, which directly contradicts the core teachings of the Christian faith and the apostolic doctrine, undermining the spiritual mission of the United House of Prayer for All People. Violations of Article 5, Section 2, General Composition and Elders. The General Assembly shall be composed of the bishop, ministers, elders, and 2 elected representatives from each congregation. Let me go back so I can explain this. Alleged to have failed to acknowledge, embrace, and reinforce and uphold the purpose of the organization. No, I'm going to just read through this so that you all know what it is. I don't want to take up too much time. Violations of Article 5, Section 2. The General Assembly shall be composed of the bishop, ministers, elders, and 2 elected representatives from each congregation. Charge number 2. Bishop Cunningham failed to ensure the proper composition of the General Assembly as required by the Constitution. Specifically, it is alleged that he allowed the absence of all local elders without credentials during the 2024 General Assembly, which did not allow for the proper and lawful accounting of the required attendance of elders. Each elder that was exempt without being exempted counts for one violation. Each elder that was not present according to the composition of the General Assembly counts for one violation. Let's continue. Violations of Article 5, Section 8, the General Assembly and credentials. The Credential Committee shall be appointed by the bishop at least 30 days prior to the meeting date, and said committee shall resolve all questions involving the certification of representatives. Charge number 3, Bishop A.D. Cunningham. It is alleged that he intentionally failed to advise and may have ill-advised the Credentials Committee regarding the correct procedures pertaining to the certification of representatives during the registration process to gain entrance into the General Assembly in order to keep certain members of the General Assembly from gaining access inside. Certain measures were not taken, and other measures were taken to ensure that certain people were not allowed that should have been admitted into the General Assembly. Or the steps that were taken was to incorrectly advise or order the Credential Committee. Violations of Article 5, the General Assembly, Section 9A. The General Assembly shall have on 2/3 vote authority to A, amend the Constitution and bylaws. Charge number 4, Bishop A.D. Cunningham. It is alleged that he unlawfully designated a constitutional revision committee prior to the 2024 General Assembly in violation of the Constitution in order to review, consider, and suggest revisions to the previous illegally amended 2022 Constitution. The Constitution does not empower anyone, including the bishop, to establish such a committee independently. Charge number 5. In May 2024, it is alleged that Bishop A.D. Cunningham intentionally and unlawfully amended the United House of Prayer for All People Constitution, despite the Constitution clearly stipulating that only the General Assembly has the authority to amend it by a 2/3 vote. This unilateral action contradicts the established process outlined in the Constitution. Article number 7, Section 1, regulations for bishops to be hereafter selected. This pertains to the spiritual advisor. The bishop shall be the spiritual advisor and chief executive officer of this organization, and he shall exercise at all times his endeavors to the best of his ability to forward the full growth of the organization, and shall maintain the faith of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Charge number 6. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has failed to exercise his endeavors to grow the organization and has at times put the health and well-being of the members of the organization at risk. Instead of making a rational decision to postpone services where hundreds or thousands may gather until it is safe for large gatherings, he has encouraged service attendance when he is visiting, further putting members at risk for contracting viruses or contagions, even after several members contracted sicknesses after attending our services in the past few months or years. He has also promoted the riding of our buses as members are put in enclosed spaces after attending services with hundreds of members that may have previously contracted a sickness a few hours prior. This, of course, puts all other bus riding members at risk as a result. Violations of Article 7, Section 2. Let me go back to that last one. No. Quite simply, there's measures have been taken for members riding buses. And this is pertaining to those members being on these enclosed spaces without other measures being taken. I'll leave it there. Don't want to go into too much detail. All these things are going to be coming out later, and every single thing will be transparent when we get into the General Assembly / the trial. Going forward, violations of Article 7, Section 2, regulations for bishops to be hereafter selected. The bishop must be full of knowledge of the doctrine of the United House of Prayer for all people of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith, always ready to answer questions correctly and in good faith, to give advice to the officers and members, and judge the various members among the church and congregations, giving every man justice according to the word and will of God, irrespective of person, and in all matters touching the spiritual side of the church. His decision shall be final. He must be industrious, working continuously for the good of the organization, of sober mind, and full of hospitality, according to the rules of the New Testament. Charge number 7. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has shown a profound failure to retain a full knowledge of the doctrine of the apostolic faith by teaching and preaching that he is a God and Jesus, and making other statements that deviate significantly from the core Christian teachings. He has misdirected the spiritual teachings of the faith to glorify himself and has neglected to maintain the sound teachings of the Holy Scriptures. He has preached and taught falsely that he is a God, that he is God and Jesus, and the three of them are one. He is a king. He is the Lord. He is a reincarnation of Jesus. He was separated from Mary's womb, and he has said that when he comes, he represents the coming of the Lord. So, like the scripture says, be ye also ready. These teachings are not only misleading to the congregation, but they also defy the doctrine of the apostolic faith. Just to be clear, these sayings fall in alignment with a perverted gospel as taught against by the Apostle Paul in Galatians, 1st chapter, 6th to the 12th verses of the New Testament of the Holy Scripture. Charge number 8. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has also failed to deliver fair and just decisions in accordance with the word and the will of God, irrespective of persons. His leadership has been marked by favoritism and discrimination, as it undermines the integrity of the office of bishop and causes great division within the vast reaches of the organization. Violations of Article 7, Section 8, regulations for bishops to be hereafter selected. The bishop may be removed from office for incompetency and for violating the laws of the faith or of the church or of the New Testament. Charge 9, Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has obstructed efforts to hold him accountable for violations of the Constitution, the church's laws, and the rules of the New Testament of the Holy Scriptures. It is alleged that he has used influence to prevent members from seeking justice and avoided compliance with due process, thereby undermining the constitutional framework of the United House of Prayer for all people. Violations of Article 7, Section 9. Regulations for bishops to be hereafter selected. Trial for violations. The bishop may be tried for violations above mentioned by the General Assembly, upon charges in writing preferred and signed by a minister and officer of the church, or by 3 members of the church, a copy of which charges must be furnished him by the Secretary of the General Assembly 30 days before such trial. Charge number 10. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has actively resisted and opposed an extradition with intent to evade, avoid, or prevent compliance and obstructed legal processes intended to address complaints and violations within the organization. This includes discouraging or preventing members from filing charges or participating in trials, thus circumventing the procedures set forth in the Constitution. Violations of Article 8, Section 1, as it pertains to ministers. The ministers of the United House of Prayer for All People of the Church on the Rock of the Apostolic Faith shall be such persons as shall be selected, designated, ordained, and set apart by the bishop. Ministers shall be of moral conduct, always in good standing with the church and respectability according to the doctrines of Jesus Christ, and not filthy lucre or of selfish intention, and shall preside for the benefit of his congregations. Charge 11. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has appointed ministers of questionable moral conduct to positions of authority within the church/organization, and has failed to remove individuals in leadership roles who engage in unethical behavior, further compromising the integrity of the organization. Violations of Article 14 as it pertains to amendments. Any amendments to this Constitution must be by a 2/3 vote of the General Assembly and signed by the bishop and secretary of this organization, and must not be in conflict with this Constitution. Charge number 12. Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, has approved amendments to the Constitution that violate its core principles, including provisions that centralizes power in the hands of the bishop and other select individuals. He has failed to maintain the constitutional balance of authority among members of the General Council, the members of the General Assembly, and whoever is sitting in the office of the Chief Executive Officer, also known as the bishop. There is to be a balance of authority when it comes to individuals sitting in these positions. There's supposed to be a checks and balances system. We've covered this in previous videos. So again, just keep in mind, you have the President's office, you have the Supreme Court, and you have Congress. Okay? All of those branches work independently of one another. And it is a separation of one another, but it is a checks and balance system to keep an eye on each other. That's what helps to allow the government and the governmental bodies to be fair when conducting business at hand in order to govern the organization. Violations of Article 15, Section 4, church and or organization asset, receiving of earnings. This one is one that I told you, I'm going to show you how the law works, how it's supposed to work. No officers, ministers, or individuals shall receive any earnings, proceeds, or funds from this organization other than a free will offering or donation commensurate with any services actually rendered the organization. Charge number 13. Bishop A.D. Cunningham has violated the Constitution by accepting compensation in the form of love marches, which is defined as wages and therefore considered by the IRS as a taxable earning, despite the explicit prohibition against such earnings for officers, ministers, or individuals, except for free will offerings or donations tied to actual services rendered. This practice undermines the financial integrity of the United House of Prayer and is a clear violation of the United House of Prayer for All Peoples Organization's Constitution. I cannot stress enough the fact that I have sought and sought and sought. I've tried and tried and tried to have meeting after meeting after meeting with individuals within our leadership roles to get them to understand all of these problems. I've tried to get people to look into these matters. I've tried to bring these matters forward. This is what I mean when I said I've tried to get to the bishop, even the former bishop, so that these things could be fixed. But when I saw the corruption and the setting of people up to have them removed or have their names tainted, have their images and reputations scarred. Okay. Now that I know, this is the problem. There's all types of conduct being done from the top that completely undermines the law, completely ignores it. And the fact that the members are not aware of how the law works, they're doing it right in front of the people's eyes. More importantly, they've been taking power from you all, the organization, the members, through the General Assembly, and taking it to give to themselves so that they can distribute amongst themselves, creating this environment where members of the organization are completely terrified. They're intimidated, too scared to stand up and speak out. But what I'm showing you is you don't need to be terrified nor intimidated. The power of the law is in the hands of the people. I'm going to show you. Let's go continue. Violations of the past during his tenure as General Assembly Secretary, Head Judge, and Senior Minister. Charge 14, Bishop A.D. Cunningham, it is alleged, in his prior roles as Secretary of the General Assembly, Head Judge of the General Council, and the Senior Minister of the organization, actively participated in and facilitated several constitutional violations. Holding all three of these offices puts you in violation. Even to be the pastor of 601 Elm Street, while serving in these positions, it makes it worse. It's a contradiction. It is. Let's continue. Conflict of interest all over the place with many of these violations. Number one, he's participated in and facilitated several constitutional violations, including, number one, assisting and participating in the creation of the 2009 Constitutional Revision Committee, despite the lack of constitutional authorization for such a committee. There was no authority to do that. Therefore, it's a violation. Number 2, it is alleged that he assisted yet again in participating in the creation of the 2022 Constitutional Revision Committee for the second time, despite the lack of constitutional authorization for such a committee. Same thing. There's no authority to do that. Number 3, it is alleged that he participated in allowing the General Assembly to hear and vote on 6 unlawful amendments, which were improperly presented as proposals, thereby corrupting the integrity of the 2009 General Assembly. This action led to those unlawful amendments being placed into another illegal constitution, now expected to be adhered to by the members of the entire organization. Number 4, it is alleged that he participated in allowing the General Assembly to hear and vote on 46 unlawful amendments, which were improperly presented as proposals, thereby corrupting the integrity of the 2022 General Assembly. This action led to those unlawful amendments being placed into another illegal constitution, now expected to be adhered to by the members of the entire organization. Number 5, it is alleged that he participated and assisted the former Bishop C.M. Bailey, in supervising, approving, creating, and willfully permitting the printing, distribution, selling, and use of fraudulent organizational literature to the members for the purpose of increasing revenue for personal gain and political advancement during the General Assembly of 2009. This is talking about the constitutions that were sold. Knowing that those constitutions were illegal, they had false statements printed inside of it, and knowing that the constitutions were fraudulent, he went on, oversaw the whole operation so they can be sold and put into circulation. Anyway, number 6, it is alleged that he assisted the former Bishop C.M. Bailey in supervising, approving, creating, and willfully permitting the printing, distribution, selling, and use of fraudulent organizational literature to the members for the purpose of increasing revenue for personal gain and political advancement during the General Assembly of 2022. Same thing he did in 2009. Number 7. Now, you're going to understand how this adds up. Because when you bring one unlawful proposal through the General Assembly, that's not one violation. That's several violations. And they add up. Number 7, it is alleged that he assisted the former bishop in evading and obstructing justice during the General Assembly of 2022 when attempts were made to bring attention to the fraud taking place within the organization. Number 8, it is alleged that he coerced the 2022 Assistant General Assembly Secretary while standing on the floor of and during the General Assembly to also assist him and the former Bishop C.M. Bailey to evade and obstruct justice for fraudulent behavior during the General Assembly 2022, when inquiry was made pertaining to witnesses desiring to bring evidence to the attention of the General Assembly. Given the substantial and ongoing violations accused towards Bishop A.D. Cunningham, we, the concerned members of the United House of Prayer for All People, formally demand swift corrective action. We urge you to take these charges seriously as they concern the integrity, stability, and spiritual direction of the organization. These actions were a clear violation, if found guilty, of the Constitution. And as senior minister, head judge, and the General Assembly Secretary, Bishop A.D. Cunningham had the authority and the responsibility to prevent such violations on several occasions, yet he intentionally, it is alleged, failed to do so. Therefore, while we the people are filing these charges with you only, the General Assembly Secretary, a copy will be given to our pastor, district chairman, and state chairman, so that it can be passed up the formal chain of command, up to the General Counsel, simply as a courtesy, and to make them aware of these proceedings. We hope that all of the persons needed to pursue these charges will take them seriously as well. However, we expect you, Mr. General Assembly Secretary, to be held accountable for serving the bishop as per the 2009 Constitution, Article 7, Section 9. We trust that you will give careful consideration to these violations and take the appropriate steps to address them in a manner consistent with the governing United House of Prayer Constitution and the teachings of the Apostolic Faith. Sincerely, and signed. Now, this is the notice of violations to Bishop Cunningham. March 3rd, 2025. This notice serves to inform you of several violations involving your past actions as senior minister, head judge, General Assembly Secretary, and now the current bishop of the United House of Prayer for All People, hereafter known as UHOP. Given that these are the four greatest positions of responsibility within the organization, the following charges have been brought against you based on documented evidence and legal concerns surrounding your conduct during the 2009, 2022, 2023, and 2024 United House of Prayer for All People General Assemblies. Your role in the distribution of fraudulent materials during these years and your alleged exploits as the leader of the organization today are under scrutiny and being examined as we prepare to bring you forward to be held accountable for your actions. Below is a list of violations and or concerns that have been compiled against you thus far. Number 1, assistance in unlawful amendments to the Constitution. It is alleged that you, Bishop A.D. Cunningham, at the time, played a key role in assisting the former Bishop, C.M. Bailey, in allowing 6 unlawful amendments to be introduced and discussed in the 2009 General Assembly. These amendments were permitted despite their clear illegality, resulting in 6 violations for allowing them to be heard and discussed, and 6 additional violations for adding these changes to the Constitution. This conduct was in direct violation of the established legal processes and undermined the integrity of the General Assembly. Number 2, conflict of interest in multiple positions of authority. You are being accused of neglecting your duties as senior minister by accepting and serving in 2 other key roles that presented a direct conflict of interest. By serving as the General Assembly Secretary, the senior minister, and the head judge on the United House of Prayer for All People General Counsel, you compromised the integrity of the entire organization. These positions, which carry substantial obligations, should have each been filled by separate yet independent individuals to ensure impartiality and accountability. By consolidating power in these roles, you were able to manipulate the organization's structure to further your own ambitions, ultimately facilitating your rise to the bishop's office. 3. Fraudulent closure of the 2009 General Assembly. You're being accused of intentionally and willfully defrauding the organization by assisting the previous bishop, C.M. Bailey, in closing the 2009 United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly without confirming procedure before distributing the newly printed, unlawful copies of the United House of Prayer for All People Constitution. These copies, which were already on site and ready for sale, were sold immediately following the close of the assembly. This action violated the integrity of the United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly's decisions and was done for purposes of deception and financial gain. 4. Repeat fraudulent actions in the 2022 General Assembly. It is alleged that you repeated your fraudulent actions during the 2022 General Assembly, where you again worked alongside the former Bishop C.M. Bailey to distribute and sell the 2022 illegal constitutions immediately following the assembly. These actions, which mirrored those of the previous occurrence, demonstrate a clear intent to defraud the organization and undermine its legal structure. 5. Distribution and sale of fraudulent literature. It is alleged that in both the 2009 and 2022 United House of Prayer for All People General Assemblies, you are responsible for overseeing, facilitating, or assisting in oversight and supervision of the distribution and sale of fraudulent House of Prayer literature, including the aforementioned illegal constitutions. These documents, which contained false, contradictory, and misleading information, should never have been allowed for sale or distribution to the members. The potential confusion and harm caused to the organization by these actions cannot be overstated. 6, obstruction/evasion of justice. It is alleged that as you served in the 3 most powerful positions of the organization, while you were only adherent to the leader at the time, you knowingly obstructed justice alongside of the former Bishop C.M. Bailey by manipulating meetings, testimonies, and the attention of attendees to prevent these violations from being addressed during the 2023 General Assembly. Along with the General Counsel, you worked to redirect focus and deflect accountability, obstructing the legal process designed to hold you and others accountable for the violations that were committed. 7, abuse of powers and election rigging and interference. It is alleged that you unlawfully used your powers and influence as the senior minister of the organization, the General Assembly Secretary, and as the head judge of the General Council in order to coerce the chief members of and indirectly the entire United House of Prayer for All People General Council to secretly but willfully work along with you in order to interfere with, rig, and steer the outcome of an official election in order to gain the seat as the Bishop of the United House of Prayer for All People, further defrauding the members of the General Assembly from carrying out a lawful and equitable and fair election. challenges to the 2009 and 2022 constitutions. This will actually include the 2023 as well, and the 24. There are several sections of the 2009, 2022, 2023, and now 2024 constitutions of the United House of Prayer that are being challenged to be corrected and or removed due to evidence that shows the leadership, including yourself, along with the General Counsel, acted unlawfully in amending the Constitution to serve the personal agenda of a few. Those amendments, which are now being scrutinized for their legality, added the General Counsel into sections woven throughout the Constitution to create significant protections for the bishop in the event that he were to be charged with violating our laws. Article 7, Section 9 of the Constitution and bylaws of the House of Prayer states that charges can be filed against the bishop by members or officers with those charges furnished to the bishop by the General Assembly Secretary. Article 7, Sections 10 and 11, among others, are believed to have been unlawfully inserted to protect the bishop by introducing the General Counsel into the process, thereby obstructing the charges being brought forward. Section 10 introduces unnecessary criteria to dismiss charges, while Section 11 contradicts Section 9 by giving the General Counsel powers it should not have over the charge process. These changes have undermined the constitutional process, and they were designed to prevent the bishop from facing trial for alleged violations. Request for accountability. We have formally filed these charges with the United House of Prayer, General Assembly Secretary, and forwarded copies to our pastor, district chairman, and state chairman to ensure proper documentation of this case. We demand that the General Assembly Secretary comes forward to assist the members to hold you accountable for your role in ensuring that you receive notification of the appropriate charges and are held accountable as outlined in Article 7, Section 9. We, the members of the United House of Prayer, come forward to demand that the United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly Secretary take these violations seriously and act in accordance with the Constitution to restore integrity to the organization. The General Counsel's unlawful influence over these processes must also be addressed, and the leadership's manipulations must be held accountable through a formal trial held in and before the upcoming General Assembly. These actions have caused significant harm to the organization, its members, and its legal structure. We expect all current individuals involved in the formal process to take these violations seriously and move forward with the necessary steps to ensure accountability of the actions of both the bishop and the General Counsel, and that justice be served. Sincerely, the concerned members of the United House of Prayer for All People, with these complaints being brought forward by and represented by the names of said individuals. This is the letter of compliance. And I'm going to read parts of this. 1 second. Constitution, serve notice. Okay. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and read the entire letter of compliance. To the General Assembly Secretary, this is a letter requesting his compliance with the laws so that you understand. Please take notice that we, the members of the organization hereafter known as United House of Prayer for All People, are formally demanding that letter of compliance. Waiting for it to load. March 3rd, 2025. Notification of charges against Bishop A.D. Cunningham. Dear General Assembly Secretary, please take notice that we, the members of the organization, are formally demanding that you swiftly act in compliance with our 2009 Constitution and serve notice of the charges outlined herein to Bishop A.D. Cunningham. It is our expectation that you will fully comply with the constitutional provisions and bring this matter forward as required. For your reference, an additional copy of this letter has been sent to the headquarters at 1665 North Portal Drive, Northwest, Washington, D.C., 20012. This serves as a form of protocol, ensuring that you are officially advised of our intent to notify the bishop of these violations. We are committed to adhering to some of the guidelines and procedures set forth in the 2009 Constitution, especially considering the severity of the violations in question. It is imperative that Bishop A.D. Cunningham be held accountable and brought to trial before the General Assembly. In light of this, we demand that you take immediate action to proceed with the necessary steps to notify the organization, United House of Prayer for All People, ensuring that individual house meetings are scheduled for the nomination and election of delegates to attend the forthcoming United House of Prayer for All People Special General Assembly to include a trial of the bishop. We would also like to bring to your attention our concerns regarding the legitimacy of the Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People's amendments, particularly those made in 2022, 2009, 2023, and 2024. These amendments, in our opinion, were enacted unlawfully to protect the bishop and prevent any challenges to his authority. Consequently, we are questioning the legality of these amendments. Despite these concerns, we are prepared to move forward using the 2009 version of the Constitution of the United House of Prayer for All People, as it is the earliest version currently available to us, but reserving the right to use an earlier version if one is made available hereafter. In accordance with the guidelines of the 2009 Constitution, we ask that you only take the necessary steps to serve notice to Bishop A.D. Cunningham, that you only, no one else. This is to ensure that all fairness is being given to this process, that the General Counsel is withheld from interfering or intervening in any of these procedures. We are demanding that you only take the necessary steps to serve notice to Bishop A.D. Cunningham of the charges against him and suspend his powers as bishop until he stands trial before the United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly as stated in the Constitution. We will look forward to the trial being scheduled within 30 to 60 days of service, with the 3rd or 4th week of April being a suitable time frame. We are eager to discuss a few stipulations related to this process that you will need to be aware of, provided that you contact us within the specified time period and are complying with our requests. Regarding our faithfulness to the organization, please be advised that both my wife and I, my family, have been my wife and I have been delegates each at 2 out of 3 United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly sessions from 2021 to 2023. It was during this period that we became aware of the former bishop's violations of the United House of Prayer for All People organization's laws. Unfortunately, our efforts to bring these violations to light were obstructed by the former Bishop C.M. Bailey with the assistance of the United House of Prayer for All People's General Assembly Secretary, Apostle A.D. Cunningham, currently the bishop, further exasperating the situation. Our attendance and participation in the General Assembly sessions, coupled with our commitment to the faith, should serve as proof of our loyalty to our organization. Should our attendance be questioned, please understand that we have chosen to stay our attendance, meaning pause, and observe how our leaders would address these issues before resuming our attendance once again. We respectfully request that you take this matter seriously as the current United House of Prayer for All People General Assembly Secretary. The responsibility to serve notice on Bishop A.D. Cunningham now falls squarely on your shoulders alone. You are the only person responsible for ensuring that the notice is delivered in accordance with the United House of Prayer for All People's Constitution. Failure to respond within 48 hours from the receipt of this notice will be considered non-compliance, and we will be forced to pursue alternative remedies, including seeking outside assistance to address this issue. Please be advised that if you fail to act, you will be implicated along with the current bishop for collusion and collaboration in obstructing and evading justice, which may result in legal consequences for you for your non-compliance. You are urged to consult with us directly, and should you require further clarification or have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us immediately. We look forward to your prompt response. And then we're signed. That's the 5 forms that were sent to him or his office this past Friday. Let me say this. Every single thing that you heard me just read, it is imperative that our General Assembly Secretary understand that there's no one who has the responsibility or the obligation of serving notice to the bishop other than yourself. There's no one that can make the decision for you. There is no one that can help you in this decision. There's no one that can get you out of this responsibility or obligation. There's no one that can help you in the event that you choose to not serve the bishop. There's no one that can keep the consequences from happening should you choose to not serve the bishop. Whether you choose to serve him or not serve him, he will be going to trial to answer for his actions as the bishop, as well as the violations that he has incurred from the events of the past. There's literally nothing whatsoever that you can do to stop this from happening. Under the scope of the law, we must hold one another accountable. For all the members of the House of Prayer, we have to stand up and hold each other accountable. We are not a people of God if we do not have law and order. We're not a people of God if we do not stand up for what is right. We're not a people that are seeking to bring other people into the knowledge of our Savior, of our Creator, of our Heavenly Father, if we don't stand up and hold people accountable when they do wrong and when they're intentionally covering the wrong that they've done. General Assembly Secretary, call me. Call me. And we can talk briefly about this. The thing is this: if you don't serve him in a matter of a few weeks, he will still be served. Once he's served, then this process will take place. You can help yourself, and no one else can help you. It does not matter what the bishop or his staff says. It does not matter what the legal team says. It does not matter what the council says. The Constitution must be followed. The legitimate and legal Constitution must be followed. There's been so many additions to the Constitutions outside of our lawful procedures that it is impossible to stand up and try to do what you can to defend not only the bishop, but any of these actions. The violations are so severe. The 46 amendments in the last Constitution of 2022, 46 for introducing them on the floor, just to be read, for the members to hear them. And then 46 more violations, introducing them on the floor and then putting them to a vote. 46 more violations for having them added to the Constitution. You're already looking at 92 violations just for that one act alone. Not you, the General Assembly Secretary, but Bishop Cunningham. You were not the General Assembly Secretary at that time. You're not responsible for that. The 6 violations in 2009, that equals 12. 12 plus 92, it's 104 violations already. There was another amendment that was added in 2024. 2 more. We're already at 114 violations. These other violations, I haven't counted them yet. It's on the other form. I've been so busy and tired. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 136, not to include the numbers of elders that were not held accountable to have them come into the General Assembly according to the composition of the Constitution. Bishop Cunningham did not enforce that last year as the bishop, and he did not enforce that all of those years as the General Assembly Secretary. And each time it was not enforced for every elder, that is another violation. So it's impossible to come up with an accurate number of violations, because we don't know how many elders there are that don't have credentials. But the Constitution stipulates that the composition is made up of elders. They're included. So we have excerpts of the Constitution printed so that no one can say that what we're alleging is false. All of these allegations are literally in black and white. There's no way around it. Whenever we talk about love marches, it is a contradiction of the Constitution. It is a conflict of interest, because the Constitution says no one is to get paid. But then we're doing love marches there where it says, and the Are You Aware, he is to be compensated for his services to the organization. That law is a contradiction to the Constitution. The Constitution is supposed to be enforced above every other law. The bishop now, Bishop Cunningham, has failed to enforce that law. At the time, the General Assembly Secretary / senior minister / head judge also failed to even do what's necessary to bring it to the attention of the former bishop. Those are all conflicts of interest. Each time a love march was conducted since he's been the bishop, that's another violation. It contradicts the Constitution. Mr. Secretary, save yourself. Talk to family, talk to friends. You do not want to not do what our law says to do for these two reasons. One, if you don't serve this notice, then you're standing and telling the entire organizational body that as the General Assembly Secretary, I absolutely refuse to abide by our laws. Your job is to enforce the Constitution. You are the only one in the entire organization who is labored with the obligation of holding the bishop and keeping him in check. It was his job to keep the former bishop in check, meaning in the General Assembly, you can't do what you've been doing as the bishop. The General Assembly Secretary's job is to be the moderator. This is what we talked about before. And the moderator has the authority to cut off the microphone. We talked about this before when it comes to presidents being in presidential debates. Mr. Secretary, your job now is to serve the bishop. Thus far, you only have 4 violations. Your violations are, if you served as the General Assembly Secretary in 2024, you have a violation already of allowing that proposal, suggested proposal, it wasn't even a proposal, to enter into the General Assembly last year. That was your first violation, as it was read and it was voted on. I'm going to go back and check on that, because allowing it to come in should be one violation. A motion has to be made in order to vote on it. So that should be the second violation. And then, because you know that it was not given due process, adding it to the Constitution, that should be 3. I'm going to check on that. But at least it's 2. And then, also as the General Assembly Secretary in 2024, you now did not ensure that all the elders, local elders, did not come into the General Assembly. You knew from last year that I was challenging the Constitution that was passed or made up, the illegal Constitution from 2022. That would be 3 violations: to not enforce the Constitution pertaining to the composition of the General Assembly that stipulates all the elders should have been there. Each elder now, that becomes another violation. I didn't think about that. So as it stands, these violations are adding up quickly. I'm going to go ahead and close out. I don't want to take up too much more time, but I'm going to come back tomorrow. I will have ample time by tomorrow night to do another video where I'm going to take my time and kind of pull this apart so that you all understand, again, the severity of what's going on right now. So here we are. Charges have been sent in. They've been received. There's a 48-hour notification on there to contact us, and we will know that your intent is to comply. If you do not contact me, if you do not email me or call, then we now know that you will not comply. You will have until tomorrow evening. Call me. Either way, call me. We're not trying to come after you, sir. You're not responsible for the years and the years and the years of the egregious violations of our laws. You just got into the seat. I'm sure that you, as a new General Assembly Secretary, were not aware. I'm sure that you were not been properly trained. I'm sure that this has not been brought to your attention. As such, we can work with that. But do call me. We are not looking to have you have to answer to legal charges. We're not looking for that. That's not our intent. This can go so much easier. If you serve him, then we can start setting up for the trial. If you're going to comply, call me anyway so that we can go over stipulations that's going to be necessary for us to set up for the trial. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for your time. And now you know. I didn't want to show you the letters. I just wanted to read the letters. So at any rate, we're going to be posting these letters online in a link so that everybody can actually print them out. And you can have your own copies to look at, to read over, to share with others, to deliberate over, to talk about. But I need to double check on one thing before we post those links. We're trying to make sure that we're fully transparent. There's nothing for us to hide. And we want to make sure that we're also doing everything within the confinements of the letter of the law. So with that said, thank you again for your time. And, well, I'll see you in the next video. Have a good night, everybody.